What is up, my friends, and welcome to another edition of AEW Week in Review. I am your host, Mark Perry, editor of Pro Wrestling News Hub, covering pro wrestling and not sports entertainment. On this week's show, we got some injury updates, some signing news, and more, plus a recap of this week's Dynamite and Dark, and the latest TV ratings, always popular on our show. Plus, Mr. Fourth Row checking in. So how do you get in touch with the show? Simple. You email podcast at prowrestlingnewshub.com with your MP3s or videos, or call 888-430-7692. Extension 3. Cutoff time is 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. And remember to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show. We really appreciate that from you guys. Question of the week coming up for next week. This is for next week's show. Is, do you think FTR is overrated? I'm kind of watching the shows and I'm like, they're like, oh, they were so amazing. And I'm like, I would rather watch Luchasaurus, Young Bucks, Private Party, anybody over FTR. So give us your thoughts on that. But that's for next week's show, question of the week. So without further ado, folks, let's talk about this week. And let's get into the week that was AEW. All right, let's recap AEW Dark as well as Dynamite and give you a preview of next week's programming. First up, AEW Dark real quick. We have Brandy Rhodes defeating Red Velvet. Brandy Rhodes likes to bring out her little action figure. The Butcher and the Blade defeated Daniel Garcia and Kevin Blackwood. Penelope Ford defeated Danny Jordan. Brian Cage defeated Megabyte Ronnie. Proud and Powerful Santana Ortiz defeated Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. in a tag match. Will Hobbs, the newly signed AEW star wrestler, defeated Jesse Sorensen in a singles match. Ivelisse and Diamante defeated Skylar Moore and Riche Chanel in a women's tag match. We haven't seen a women's tag match in a while. Here's one that could have went either way. Colt Cabana defeated QT Marshall in a singles match. And what everybody was anticipating, Brandon Cutler versus Peter Avalon, ends in a double countout. They are still 0. I was thinking that that's how I would book it. You don't want to end this. There's really nothing going on with these guys. Their little feud, whatever it is, continues. And then finally, Best Friends, Chuck and Trent defeat Max Stardom and Dante Smiley in a tag match. Oh, and then we have the Dark Order, Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, Alex Reynolds, and John Silver defeating Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn, and the Gun Club, Billy Gunn and Austin Gunn. And that concludes AEW Dark. AEW Dynamite, this was a pretty good show. I was thinking that maybe it might not be a great show, but it was a good show. First of all, we had the FTR versus Jurassic Express. Winner is FTR. I gave this a 3.25. I'm not a huge FTR fan. I think Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus definitely made this match more interesting. I'm just not into FTR, but still, this was still a good match. Gave it a 3.25. Hangman Page versus Frankie Kazarian. Winner, Hangman Adam Page. This was a really good, this was my elite match of the night. I gave it a 3.75. This was my favorite match of the night. These two guys come out. I thought maybe Frankie Kazarian might get the win and Adam Page might have this long losing streak or something like that, which would have been real interesting, kind of hitting that rock bottom and losing a bunch of matches. MJF versus Shawn Dean. Winner MJF. I give this a 1 because it lasted 10 seconds. MJF got on the mic, started talking trash about Jon Moxley, etc. But will MJF join a faction or create his own faction? This was kind of a little interesting twist. Not really sure where his character is going. And it seems like they definitely just dropped that whole presidential thing real quick. Eddie Kingston comes out with his crew and they beat up a bunch of people, showing them that what's up there. The Demo God, Chris Jericho and Jake Hager versus Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn. Again, another guy. I'm not a big Jake Hager fan. I'm just not feeling him. Chris Jericho and Jake Hager are the winner. I give this one a 3. I think Mark Quinn and Isaiah Cassidy did a good job. Chris Jericho. Then Jake Hager did okay. That's why I gave it a 3. Women's title match. Well, this is the NWA World's Women's Championship match. Thunder Rosa versus Ivelisse. This was a really good match. I gave this winner, Thunder Rosa, I gave this a 3.25. This one was a good match, and I would love to see Thunder Rosa in AEW. Because she's under contract and they're borrowing her. I mean, that's what you don't want to have is your NWA champion in any form appear on television, and then all of a sudden you lose them. So Thunder Rosa is still going around the area, which is great for her, being on television and then representing NWA. But I would really love to see Thunder Rosa in AEW, on the AEW roster. A lot of people would. We check in with Muriel and Kip Sabian, talking about his bachelor party. That should be interesting. Lance Archer checks in, and we'll get into that in a second, because then Jon Moxley comes in. And basically, we're going to have a big match next week on AEW Dynamite. We'll get into that in a second. Then the parking lot fight, Proud and Powerful, Santana Ortiz, which I don't even know if they go by Proud and Powerful anymore, versus Best Friends, Chuck Taylor and Trent. This was a fantastic match, very entertaining, lots of fun, lots of big bumps, lots of spots. Winners, Best Friend. I gave this a 4.25. This was my elite match of the night. I thought this match was great. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, it was a great match. Across the board, didn't know who was going to win. A lot of fun to watch. Orange Cassidy makes an appearance. Spoiler if you didn't see it. And it was a great match, which ends with Sue giving Proud and Powerful Santana Ortiz the middle finger. And if that's not great television, I don't know what is. Due to AEW having taped an extra hour of TV due to the NBA playoffs, we are now going to get an extra hour next Tuesday following the NBA playoff game on TNT. See, the original idea was that this extra hour would be seen on Wednesday, and then Dynamite would have aired on Thursday. However, due to the NBA playoff series ending early, it wasn't needed. We basically got the regularly scheduled programming instead, which was great. So next week's special episode that was supposed to air on Wednesday will now air on Tuesday, because this is already in the hopper and you needed to get rid of this, so to speak, to move on to the next set of tapings. So next week's special Tuesday late night Dynamite on TNT will feature a main event of Matt Sydal versus Shawn Spears. This is Sydal's first match since he made his debut at AEW All Out in the Casino Battle Royale. We know his little botch that happened. Still no word on if Sydal has signed with All Elite Wrestling or not. The card will feature Chris Jericho on commentary, which will be a lot of fun, and two other matches as well. First, a singles match, Scorpio Sky versus Ben Carter, and Brandy Rhodes versus Pro Wrestling News Hub's favorite, Anna Jay, as well. So it should be a good hour of pro wrestling on TV on Tuesday. Next week's matches for AEW Dynamite, the big announcement was Mr. Brody Lee versus Orange Cassidy. This now will be back live in Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. So this is the lineup so far. We have a TNT title match, Mr. Brody Lee versus Orange Cassidy. We'll see if Mr. Brody Lee just demolishes him. I mean, Orange Cassidy did beat Chris Jericho. Does Cassidy have a chance? I think we're going to keep Brody Lee with the TNT Championship belt for quite some time. I would be stunned to see Orange Cassidy win this one. Tag match, Hikaru Shida, Thunder Rosa versus Ivelisse and Diamante. This should be a good match. Thunder Rosa has been great. Hikaru Shida, I mean, if you were to rank the women's wrestlers right now, I mean, Hikaru Shida would be, of course, the champion. I would say Thunder Rosa is over pretty much anybody else on the roster right now. And Ivelisse, she's got to get some wins so that she can crack in the top 5 as well. She's been doing a good job wrestling as well. The 60-man tag match, it's going to feature Jon Moxley, Will Hobbs. I was stunned by that one. And Darby Allin versus Lance Archer, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks. Ricky Starks is one of my up-and-coming favorite guys as well. This should be a lot of fun and a good match. I mean, Lance Archer and Brian Cage together should be real interesting. What happens? There's no way Lance Archer beats Jon Moxley on the anniversary show. That's the plan, is that it'll be Jon Moxley versus Lance Archer. I believe it's October 14th, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, October 14th in a championship match, the 1-year anniversary of AEW Dynamite. But it would be interesting if Lance Archer wins, because part of the stipulation of Taz's group joining was that Brian Cage would get a shot at the title, which was cool. And we'll get an appearance by Chris Jericho as well. Not really sure if he's doing commentary, but he'll be on the show as well. So next week's show is already lining up to be a lot of fun, and that's the September 23rd show. Ratings are in for AEW Dynamite and NXT for the week of Wednesday, September 16th. They were released by Showbuzz Daily, and AEW finishes third overall for the night. Dynamite drew 886,000 viewers, way down from last week's at 1 million viewers. However, they finished seventh overall last week and finished third this week. Dynamite was taped this week at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida, like always, and it featured the parking lot main event between Santana and Ortiz and the Best Friends. NXT drew 689,000 viewers, way down from last week's 838,000 viewers. It finished 31st overall. This is the first time both shows went head-to-head in weeks, and the show featured NXT North American Championship match with Damian Priest beating Timothy Thatcher. The total combined wrestling audience for both shows was up to 1.575 million viewers. It was 1.411 million viewers the last time these two shows went ahead. So without the sports, pro wrestling in general garnered probably over 150,000 viewers, since there was no sports on. So fans tuned in to some wrestling, which is really good overall for wrestling. Based on the ratings, there were no sports for the night, like we just said. The only 6 news shows finished in the top 15, which seems to be the going rate lately. Real Housewives won the night, with cable news and AEW Dynamite making up the rest of the top 5. One interesting thing that I just see in these all the time, in the 50-plus demo, most of them watch the news. I mean, a lot of them watch the news. It is pretty crazy how much 50-plussers watch the news. But eventually that number is going to break, because people my age in their 40s and some in their 50s, they do watch the news, but that's not going to be a thing in the next 10 years. Dave Metzler noted on the recent edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter that AEW's All Out pay-per-view was able to garner around 100,000 to 110,000 pay-per-view buys. AEW's All Out pay-per-view is said to have similar buys as the company's Revolution pay-per-view back in February and the All Out pay-per-view in 2019. It was also then reporting that All Out's total number of pay-per-view buys is down about 10 to 15% from the Double or Nothing pay-per-view last May, which was reportedly the most purchased pay-per-view event in AEW's history. Metzler also noted that this year's All Out is about the third or fourth most purchased pay-per-view event of the company's 6 total pay-per-views in its history. So just right in line with everything else going on and the economy being bad, that AEW maintains that 100 to 110,000 pay-per-view buys, which to me is a good thing. About a week ago, Angelico from TH2 took on Orange Cassidy in a singles match, and he came out the losing end. After the match, a fan took to Twitter and asked Evans and Angelico if they were pissed off, or if they pissed off somebody backstage to get that kind of treatment. Jack Evans responded to the tweet by saying that there isn't any kind of heat or anything, but he has a hairline fracture in his left cheekbone, so he's just waiting to be cleared. Evans last appeared on All Elite Wrestling on the August 25th episode of Dark, which saw himself and Angelico beat Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss in tag team action. There's no word yet on when Jack Evans will be back in the ring, but updates will be provided once they are available. So there's no heat between TH2, just Jack Evans out with an injury. Indie wrestler Will Hobbs signs with All Elite Wrestling. He appeared on the Casino Battle Royale at AEW All Out. Prior to that, he had numerous appearances on AEW Dark. And up until recently, he was on the losing side of those matches, but he actually won his last 2 matches on AEW Dark, which signaled that there could be something in the works. He first appeared on Dark in early July, losing to Orange Cassidy, and made his Dynamite debut August 13th, losing in a singles match to Darby Allin. Next week, Hobbs is now getting thrust in the limelight as he, Darby Allin, and Jon Moxley are set to take on Lance Archer, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks in a main event match in next week's Dynamite. So it's interesting to see how AEW uses Will Hobbs, but they seem pretty high on him. Did you know you can get all the latest AEW news right from your phone? That's right, we're excited to announce the Pro Wrestling News Hub app. That's right, and it's free. You can get it for your iPhone. You can get it for your Google Android phone. And they're both free. You get all our breaking AEW news, information from Pro Wrestling News Hub right from your phone. You can just visit the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. What do you get? You get the latest news from Pro Wrestling News Hub. You get push notifications when a new post or story comes out. You get our podcast on the phone. You can leave us a review on iTunes, links to our social media, and so much more. All you have to do is, if you have an iPhone, go to the iTunes store and just look up Pro Wrestling News Hub and download it. Just type in AEW News. You can get our phone app, and guess it is free, my friends. It's free. So head over. You get all the latest news right from your phone, from your friends from Pro Wrestling News Hub, whether you have an iPhone or an Android. And it's best of all, it's free. All right, let's quickly get to our social media stuff. Toby Starburst talking about last week's rating said amazing. William says they only drew that many viewers because NXT was on Tuesday. Easy to have that many unopposed. This is absolutely true. When you're not going NXT drawing fans away from your product, there's no question about that. But that's still, it's a good thing to still get over 1 million. I think this scares WWE, and I don't think they will move NXT to Tuesdays because they don't want AEW to get those kind of numbers. No way. A little discussion going on there. You can check that out on our YouTube channel. Lots of discussions about that 1 million viewers thing. On AJ Styles confirms talks with WWE when WWE contract expired. Ash says he'd be a perfect fit in AEW roster. Yes. I think him, Kevin Owens, Ricochet, Cesaro, everybody else, they could go away. Again, AEW's roster is already getting stacked. There's just not a lot of room for these guys. But, I mean, AJ Styles going at it with Kenny Omega would be some good stuff. Again, on this week's ratings about AEW Dynamite finishing 3rd and NXT 31st, Gray says AEW beats the NXT's butt again and still to come. There you have it there. And for matches next week, we got Brody Lee versus Orange Cassidy, says, and the new TNT champion, freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy. And Ed drops in a little happy Miro Day. That's very nice. On the Twitter, President Makachow Man 2020 says, talking about All Out, he said gave it a 7 and 10. Most of the matches were excellent, but the Hardy incident soured the mood a bit because I was worried about the man. However, it was a solid, but they've had better ones. I agree with that. The Matt Hardy getting injured definitely took some things away from the match. C- from Ian Wool says 2 terrible matches, Hardy and the Baker mess. I guess he didn't like the Britt Baker match. Only one match I would call very good was Shida Rosa. I agree with that. And the rest range from okay to good. Far too long, not worth $50. It's hard when you're paying $50 for these things. I would hope that they make a deal with HBO Max and puts their, just like WWE Network has a thing. It's like, hey, you want to get AEW pay-per-views, you can either buy them individually, which I'm sure they have partnerships and agreements, or they'll be on HBO Max and you just have to have a subscription. Either one of those. But I mean, you're talking about 100,000 buys at $50 a pop, and then who knows who gets what take out of that. President McChow again says Abaddon needs more. Will hopefully get more TV time. Yeah, I'm surprised that she's not out there more. I don't know where she lives, but they need to put her out there more. I mean, you're bringing in some people that don't have names, wrestling matches. What about Abaddon? See what's going on with that. And Frankie J. Ryan says shows getting better and better. Totally agree with that. There was some good stuff this week. It's been a lot of fun watching AEW, and I can't say that when I was a WWE fan. But speaking of somebody who I am a fan of, it's Mr. Fourth Row.
It's a go for another phone call there from Mr. Fourth Row. Hey, AEW Week in Review and Mr. Mark. I guess I apologize for not being on the last 2 episodes. I guess I kind of got confused that there was going to be a show shortly after All Out. And then just missed last week because of the weird scheduling and timing and everything like that. But let me go ahead and provide you my feedback that would have been on both of those shows. So let's talk my reaction from All Out 2020 version. I thought it was good. It wasn't fantastic like the 2019 version was, but I could be a little biased just because I was there in attendance in Chicago last year for it, and of course, like I mentioned, get to go to the event with my brother from another mother. That was good. So, and then I'm gonna agree with everything that's been said. Probably the best 2 matches were the women's title match, and then of course the AEW championship match as well. Those were both good. Nothing too fantastic about the whole night, but I also think that there was kind of a little damper put on it with of course Matt Seidel's slippage. Yes, things happen. It was a good quick catch from the announce team, I thought, on that. Things can happen, and it just could have been it could have been wet. It could have been just over anxiousness, because it was a big pop and him being the Joker in that match. And then of course Matt Hardy's incident, and they could have, like you said, they could have written around that and everything like that. And of course preluding to last week's episode, Matt they're kind of trying to do their damage control on everything there. But then anyways, we were asked about Miro, Best Man Miro. I'm liking it. I always thought he should have got like a bigger push in that other company, Glass Ceiling, Brass Ring, all that kind of stuff like that. And as long as they find a good storyline and everything with him, like they did have done with like Brody Lee, I think it's going to be a great signing. And, they're going to continue to live up to their name of being All Elite. Anyways, just a quick shout out for this week's episode. Wow, what a crazy finish to the episode and all that. So that's it for now. And once again, that is my view, not from the cheap seats, not from the most expensive seats, but from the fourth row.
All right, thanks, Mr. Fourth Row. Yeah, Matt Sydal. If you didn't check out BET this week, they were kind of making it, and Michael Nakazawa messed him up kind of thing. That would be a good feud to kind of wrap it up, that he was sabotaged by Michael Nakazawa. If you didn't see BET, you got to check that out about Matt Sydal. But I think that actually would be kind of a fun thing to do on AEW Dark or even on Dynamite. I'm not sure what Sydal's contract situation is with AEW, but it was a good little twist to it. So anyway, thanks for Mr. Fourth Row for checking in. And remember, next week's question of the week, do you think FTR is overrated? Am I the only one? Let us know your thoughts on that. Remember, you can follow us everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc., etc. If you want to be part of the show, email podcast@prowrestlingnewshub.com or call 888-430-7692 extension 3. Follow us everywhere on social media stuff and give us a like and subscribe on the YouTubes. We really appreciate that. Plus, you can download our app. Leave a review for Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show. We really appreciate that kind of stuff. And for show notes, go to prowrestlingnewshub.com/AEW-podcast. We have our Discord channel going on there as well. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you next week after AEW Dynamite. Looking forward to the Brody Lee Orange Cassidy match. And I'm curious to see what you guys think about FTR. So thanks for listening. God bless. Mahalo. And I will see you all later.